I first want to introduce John Mandyck. John is the Chief Sustainability Officer for United Technologies Corporation. He chairs the Corporate Advisory Board of the World Green Building Council, and he's a member of the Corporate Council at Harvard University Center for Health and the Global Environment. He's on the adjunct faculty for the University of Connecticut School of Business, and he's a co-author. John's this unique guy where he's at UTC, does all this energy stuff, and then he's really into food. So he actually authored a book called Food Foolish, which explores the hidden connection between food waste, hunger, and climate change. He blogs on sustainability issues at the Huffington Post. So we're going to call John up here in a second, but I also wanted to introduce at the same time Wim Vivel, who's leading the panel, which will immediately succeed John's talk. So Wim, many of you know, is the president of Portland State, holds degrees in sociology and urban planning from the University of Amsterdam and a PhD in sociology from Northwestern. Served as provost and senior VP of academic affairs at University of Baltimore and dean of the College of Business Administration, the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs at University of Illinois, Chicago. He's authored dozens of articles on a variety of subjects. So let's welcome John Mandyck to the stage.
Thank you, Tim. I won't shake Tim's hands.
He's the first person that has not tried to.
Don't shake Tim's hands. He broke both wrists snowboarding last week, so I made the mistake of trying to shake his hand earlier today. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. I want to start by thanking all of you for all that you're doing to promote and advance sustainability, not only on your campus, but the amazing opportunity you have as thought leaders, as voice leaders for sustainability. It's very, very important right now, and we appreciate and are grateful for all that you do. As Tim mentioned, I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for United Technologies Corporation. For those of you that don't know United Technologies, we're a Fortune 45 company, $57 billion in revenues, 200,000 employees around the world. We're in two principal business segments, aerospace and buildings. In the aerospace side, we're the world's largest provider of aerospace systems and technologies with brands, for example, as Pratt & Whitney jet engines. On the business side, on the building side, we're also the world's largest provider of building technologies with brands such as Otis Elevator, Carrier Heating, Ventilating, and Air Conditioning, and Chubb Fire and Security Systems. Today I'm going to talk about accelerating sustainable buildings, accelerating green buildings. And this is a movement we know really, really well because we helped to create it. We were the first company to join the U.S. Green Building Council in 1993 when we helped to launch that organization. We literally bought the paper clips, we did the mailings to incubate that organization to get it off the ground. And what transformational work they have done to change the buildings industry in 20 years with their LEED green building rating system. Today I want to talk about the opportunity, though, to actually accelerate green building adoption around the world. I've always been a firm believer that data drives decisions. And we need better data to be making better decisions when it comes to our built environment. We recognized a void in the marketplace for good data related to the human performance potential in green buildings. And so we partnered with higher education, with Harvard University, to do some landmark research that I'm going to show you in a minute in this regard. But my talk actually fits very well into the panel that will follow on investments, because there's a new trifecta of value that has formed for the potential of green buildings. First, the first leg is with actual investors. In the last 5 years, $7.6 trillion have gone in to back green building development, principally from institutional investments like pension funds, because they know that green buildings are better investment opportunities. The second leg of value is with building owners. Building owners are recognizing that green buildings command better rent rates, higher cash flow, better transaction prices, and so green buildings are being adopted because owners see value. And finally, we are rounding out the leg with the third leg with value that's being recognized by owners or tenants in the form of productivity and health, and that's what we're going to review today. But I want to start with the big picture perspective and why any of this is important. Green buildings are important because buildings consume 40% of the world's energy. 40%. So the future of buildings and the future of sustainability absolutely go hand in hand. And if you look inside a building, 45% of the energy used inside a building comes from the technologies that my company makes, the elevator systems and the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems. And so we understand that we have a big obligation, and frankly, we have a big opportunity to help building owners achieve their sustainability goals, to achieve their lower carbon goals. And I can tell you the market's been choosing wisely. This is green building adoption in commercial construction in the United States. In 2005, green buildings represented just 2% of US commercial construction. But in 2014, when the data was last collected, green buildings represented 47% of commercial construction in the United States. Tremendous progress that we can be proud of. And a lot of that has happened on campuses across the country and across the world. But I can tell you, we are holding ourselves back. As much as we want to celebrate that, and we do, we are holding ourselves back, and this is why. If you look at the true operating cost of a building, an office building, just about 1% is energy. About 10% is overhead, is mortgage and rent. But 90% of the true operating costs of an office building are the salaries and the benefits of the people in the building. Think of it this way. We've achieved 47% green building penetration in the United States, chasing 1% of the cost. Because up until now, the payback decisions for green buildings have all been on saving energy, and that's important. We have to continue to do that. But just think about how much farther and faster we can accelerate the green building movement if we focus on 90% of the cost, which is the people. Now, to do that, you need convincing data that green buildings improve the health and productivity of the people in them. That data was thin until now. United Technologies approached Harvard University 3 years ago and asked if Harvard could design research that would examine if there are human performance benefits, productivity benefits, health benefits for people that work in green buildings. This has led to 2 landmark studies that have been released just in the last 2 years at Greenbuild. They're all under the banner of the cogfxstudy.com that's on the screen there. And if you want to dive into the details, all the research is there. These are peer-reviewed, scientifically published papers. I'm going to give you the 3-minute overview here. Study 1 was a laboratory-based study that examined 24 office workers in the Syracuse business community that came to this lab at Syracuse University. On the top floor, you can see it looks like a regular office building, but below is a very sophisticated lab where the air can be manipulated to the floor above. So 24 people came to this lab for 6 days over 2 weeks. They did their regular office duties. Then at the end of the day, they took a standardized cognitive test administered by Upstate New York Medical Center. This is a test that's been given 70,000 times over the last 4 decades, but for the first time in an environment controlled for the quality of the air, simulating in green buildings. Every day the people came in, there was a different type of air they were breathing. And the researchers only controlled for 3 variables: the level of CO2, the level of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and the ventilation rate. And for example, for CO2, you can see here they mimic two different posts: a standard office building with CO2 at 950 parts per million, which is the building code. And then they looked at it in an optimized green building setting with CO2 at 600 parts per million, like you would find in a LEED Gold or a LEED Platinum building. Nothing exotic. But the results are truly extraordinary, because based on the standard office building versus the enhanced office building with the green building setting, cognitive test scores went up 101%. Cognitive function doubled for the same people who came to this study when they worked in the green building setting. This is the Pareto of the 9 cognitive functions. I'll just point you to the top. Information usage test scores went up 299% with those simple, small tweaks in variables. So that was study 1. Study 2 went out of the lab into the real building setting. 10 office buildings, 5 cities across the United States, 109 people this time taking the same cognitive tests. Now, it turned out in these 10 office buildings, they were all high-performing buildings. They were all energy efficient. They all had very, very good indoor environmental quality. So you could surmise that the people working there were already getting the benefits of what we saw in study 1. But the research went further and said, are there additional benefits if the building is certified as green? And it turns out there is, because there's an additional 26% improvement in cognitive test scores for people who worked in the certified green building versus the non-certified green building. And here are some of the domains that spiked. I'll just take you to the top. Crisis response, cognitive test scores went up 73% for people who worked in the certified green building. 2 markers came out of the research on why this might be. The people who worked in green buildings were more within the thermal comfort zone, and we saw test scores go up because of that. And then there's also an interesting relationship with light. Green buildings offer better daylight. Daylight impacts our melatonin levels. Melatonin impacts the way we sleep. The way we sleep impacts the way we think and perform the next day. It's this cycle that the research has documented. I can tell you this research and this data is changing the conversation in the real estate industry across the world. That green buildings, yes, they save energy and they save water, and that's important. But green buildings are now believed to understand that they can improve our health, they can improve our productivity. I just wrote a blog on this with a simple question: are you interviewing your building? Because if you're a job applicant and you traditionally study your salary and your compensation package, you better be asking, is my office in a green building? Does it have optimized indoor environmental quality? Because it could be the single most determining factor for how well you will perform in your job. This research is changing everything, and it's because data drives decisions. And we're really pleased to partner with higher education to bring this data to the market. If you're interested in learning more, I invite you to check out our social media channels where we'll be publishing follow-on research with Harvard and others in this field. But I want to just conclude by thanking you again for all that you're doing and the unique position you are in to help advance sustainability around the world. We'd love to work with you on that. Congratulations on a great meeting, and I look forward to the panel with Vim.